When we think about the return of the Jewish people to the land, God brought the people of Israel to a neighborhood which was surrounded by enemies. Suddenly, 70 years later, Israel becomes a startup nation, part of being a light of the nation, of being a testimony to what God is doing through the people of Israel, in the people of Israel, is the startup nation. Because He brought them to a neighborhood where they had to be creative. The enemies around them pushed them into creativity. And when we think about innovation, I personally believe that God Himself gave them a supernatural wisdom to come up with all those startups in order to lead the way and to be a light to the world. Let us see the miracle of the startup nation in Israel. Shalom. With us today is Dr. Ami Applebaum, Israeli chief scientist. Dr. Appelbaum, what a great honor to have you with us.
Great to be here.
The position of the chief scientist in Israel, it's a unique position.
Chief scientist is basically the arm for the government to promote research and development in Israel. If we got the name of Startup Nation, a lot of it is attributed to the activities that the government of Israel started more than 40 years ago, to take public fund, public money, and invest it in the private sector for research and development.
So if I understand properly, young Israelis are coming to the chief scientist, they have an idea. You guys are deciding if this idea has a merit or doesn't have a merit.
Yes, and what's interesting is that I would say more crazy it sounds, and higher the risk, more than we tend to give him the money. We want to take the highest risk because that's the highest reward.
What makes Israel unique, and why do you think Israel got to the point that it's called a startup nation?
In order to have this startup nation, you need a full ecosystem. First, you need the government, and we talked about it. Second, you need a strong academia and strong education system. You need the atmosphere of entrepreneurship and somebody that will take those entrepreneurs that no one will fund them, that to give them fund. You need the global companies because you want technology, you want people to be exposed to technology. Companies like IBM came here many, many years ago, KLA came here, Intel came here. Last and not least, Israel Defense Force. The fact that every young Israeli at 18 years old knows that he'd go to the military, when you have to make life and death decision, your mindset is changing immediately. You learn to work with, in a group, you learn discipline, and let me tell you a story. I was sitting, as I sit opposite you, with the CEO of Daimler-Benz. Daimler-Benz, the Mercedes, the best of Germany industry. And he come to Israel. I said, why do you come here? And he said, and I know that if I will not be here in Israel, I will not have access to all the cyber technology, to all the sensors that you guys are providing, and I will have no company tomorrow. And if you see all the large company, now you have to ask yourself, if I'm an investor, if I'm a VC, can I afford not to be where all of this happened? And
But I would tell you, I would ask you, why not India?
Because what you find in Israel is out-of-the-box thinking, what many people are familiar with the term, with the chutzpah.
The Bible tells us that Israel will be a light to the nations. How do you see it?
What I think we do is provide the world a most human solution to all problems. And we believe that Israel should be one of the leaders. It makes the world a better place to live.
Dr. Appelbaum, thank you very much. It was very interesting. And to you, our friend, stay with us for another Inside Israel and the Middle East. Thank you for joining us as we provide a spiritual insight of what God is doing in Israel and in the Middle East. If you want to learn more about what God is doing in Israel, make sure to visit us on our webpage and follow us on social media. Shalom, and God bless you from Jerusalem.